So anime fans, welcome back to my channel, Fiction Star. So I will start with new series. The series name is What If Naruto Had Daughter Belmere. So let's start the series. The sounds of cannon fire and screams filled the air, along with the iron scent of blood. All around the now ruined village were bodies of both pirates and marines, no true victor of the battle to be seen. And yet amongst the blood-soaked plains, a lone female marine could be seen, injured but alive, her only distinguishing feature being her rather odd red mohawk of sorts, with her hair actually shaved on both sides save for the back which had a small ponytail. Bruised and bloodily she managed a slow but steady pace, scanning the destroyed town with disdain, regretting how events had managed to play out. Part of her was tempted to simply lay out and die where she stood. Fine mess I got myself into, squad's dead, village is burning down, and if the unpleasant taste in my mouth is anything to go on, I think I'm bleeding internally. Falling to one knee, the woman looked upon the destruction before her, vision actually starting to blur slightly as she felt her strength leaving her. Guess it was gonna happen sooner or later, course. Dying in battle defiantly isn't the worst way to go, I suppose. Yet, as she readied herself to embrace the release of death, a small crying echoed across the sky, her eyes shooting open as all thoughts of death were immediately torn to shreds. Looking around with a frantic pace, her eyes quickly landed on a small girl, no older than perhaps 5, with blue hair and a bandana, managing to get to her feet, with a degree of struggle. She quickly made her way over to the girl, taking note of the small bundle in her arms. "Is that your sister?" The girl turned and met eyes with the marine, quickly shaking her head. "No, I found her." Both girls looked upon the small orange-haired infant, who smiled amidst the death and destruction, bringing tears and a smile to both of their faces. The red-haired woman feeling a sense of renewed life flowing through her. "Guess I won't be checking out any time soon. No way in hell I'm leaving these kids to die. Genzo would kick my ass if I did." Taking the girl's hand, she turned in the direction of the docks. "Hopefully there's still a boat or two left. Can't stay here. Hopefully we can make it back to Kokoyashi village." The girl followed without objection, obviously having nothing left tying her to the smoldering town. Yet they didn't make it less than 2 feet before a gunshot rang out. "Managed to find you, you damn marine bitch!" Letting out a growl, the injured woman found herself looking at the crosshairs of a pistol, held by an obviously injured pirate, looking upon the group with demented glee. "You damn marines had to go and ruin everything. We'd managed to make a nice little niche for ourselves here, and then you go and turn the whole thing into one big clusterfuck." Cocking the pistol, his pupils constricted as his bloodlust became apparent. "Now you get to die like the rest of your shit-sucking government lackeys." Without a second thought, the woman quickly covered the 2 girls with her body, ready to take the shot head-on. The harsh crack of an unloaded pistol filled the night, yet no sensation of pain entered her body, no wet feeling of blood leaving her. She felt nothing. Looking up, she was met with the sight of a young man of her age, with pointed blonde hair, clad in a pair of dirty black pants, an orange vest, sandals, and what appeared to be a somewhat bloody black headband around his head. She simply stared at the man, mesmerized at how quickly he'd appeared. All the while the pirate looked upon him with frustration and fury, casual tossing the pistol in his hand aside. "Who the fuck are you, pal?" Quickly pulling out another pistol and readying it to fire. "I'm not about to die without taking at least one more bitch-ass marine with me, but I don't mind putting a bullet in between your eyes first." "Really?" The stranger didn't seem even remotely worried, as the pirate pulled his hand on the trigger. Before she had a chance to call out to him, the stranger simply moved his hand directly in front of the pistol, while his other hand found itself buried in the pirate's chest with a dull thud. "You," the pirate gurgled wetly, choking on his blood. "What are you?" "Me?" His voice sounded hoarse and rough, as though he hadn't spoken in nearly an age. "I'm nobody. You're dead." A sick, squelching sound followed as the blonde ripped his hand from the interloper's chest. A flash of lightning lit the stormy sky to reveal bright blue eyes and a blood-spattered face, whiskered cheeks pinched in an annoyed scowl. The pirate fell to his knees as he looked at the hole in his chest. Spitting out some blood, the stranger made an attempt to turn, but quickly realized his error as the pirate had used what little strength he had left to pull the trigger and fire, the bullet flying straight into the man's hand, as the pirate fell over dead. Belmere, still clutching the newly discovered Nami and Nojiko to her chest, could only gulp. The young man grimaced slightly, staring down at his ruined fist, now bearing a massive pulpy mass from catching the bullet with his bare hand. "Ha, almost out of chakra, That's kinda new, actually. Gonna be kinda sucky if I can't heal or anyhow. There we go! As she looked on, his broken fingers wound themselves back together, fingers twisting and popping as bone and sinew found themselves new homes in his shot-leaden fist. Who in the hell were you? He gave her an odd look. Lady, I was hoping you could tell me where. Looking at him as if a sea king just sprouted out of his hair, the female Marine could only gawp at his somewhat casual disregard for all that's going on. Are you some kind of moron? Who walks on the middle of the battlefield, just because they got lost? Do you like getting shot at? Ha! His outburst startled her, his blue eyes gleaming angrily. Hey lady, in case you missed the recent chain of events, I just saved your sorry ass by getting shot at. He huffed. A little gratitude would be appreciated. Growling for a moment, she quickly shook any thoughts she had off. I don't have time for this crap right now. These girls can't stay in this burnout hellhole. So I'm leaving, thanks for the assist. Now kindly go get lost somewhere else. Quickly picking up the baby with her hand and leading the other away, they turned in the direction of the docks. Hopefully there's a boat we can take to get back to Kokoyashi. Shouldn't be too difficult. The unlikely trio started to walk away from the burned village, only to find the strange blonde man now right in front of them. You know, I can understand you being a little rude and everything, considering all the shit you've had to deal with. But now you're just being really stupid on top of that. Belmere quickly found herself tempted to punch the stranger despite her condition, held back only by the little bundle of joy currently in her arms. What the hell do you even care in the first place? And what do you mean stupid? Quickly jerking his thumb up to the sky, various dark clouds could be seen on the horizon. Can't you tell by the wind and air? There's gonna be a serious storm rolling through here and you want to travel through it, on some dinky-ass boat, with a baby and child on board. Not sure what else to call that but stupid. No, wait, reckless and stupid, that's much more accurate. He spoke that last line with a smirk and Belmere was flat out pissed, getting directly in his face and grabbing him by his vest. So what if it is a little reckless? If I stay here these girls will die and I'm not gonna sit here and let that happen. Here screams managed to wake up the baby in her arms, who strangely enough looked at both adults with a smile on her face, not the least bit frightened by Belmere's loud voice or the stranger. In fact, she actually reached out to him with her tiny little arms, meriting a smile from the strange. He reached out to her, allowing her to lock her small hands around his finger, and letting out a small chuckle. Well, I can't really argue with your logic there. Casually letting out a sigh, he pulled his finger back and pointed to a nearby boat. Lucky for you there happens to be one last boat, still afloat on this island, and since I can't bear the thought of leaving these little girls alone with someone as hot-headed as you, I shall lend a hand here as well. He spoke with a much more playful tone to his previously cold demeanor, actually catching the female Marine off guard with his joking behavior. However, a sudden series of raindrops shut her mouth, before making her way to the docks with the girls in tow. Fine, but you screw around on the boat and I'll boot your ass overboard. Without further prodding, the stranger made his way to the boat with her. By the way, I'm Naruto, in case you were wondering. Belmere, and I wasn't wondering. Now shut up and help me paddle. We've got a lot of ocean to cover. Whatever you say, boss lady. She swiped half-heartedly at his head with a boot. The small ragtag group quickly boarded the boat, just as a series of storm clouds began to darken the sky. Lightning crashed overhead, a deep, booming rumble crashing while the waves began to rock. They were in for a seriously hellish ride, Belmere realized. She shot a glower at her blonde companion. Well, what are you doing? Man the oars. Now it was his turn to look at her as though she'd grown two heads. Oars? What oars? Haven't you rowed a boat before? No. And I'm almost out of chakra. Not my fault, I never went sailing before. Just row, boy. If there was a whip, she would have cracked it in that instant. Oh, fuck all kinds of duck. This was going to suck. Kokoyashi Village. The storm had quickly begun to rage into a violent maelstrom, with massive waves ripping across the sea, capable of tossing boats around like leaves, while the wind howled with rampant fury. Standing on the dock in this hellstorm of all things, was a small band of villagers, including a man in a brown police uniform with a pinwheel on the top, currently spinning like a buzzsaw in the midst of the gale. His eyes, along with those of several other parties, were looking out upon the ocean, a look of panic on their faces. I'm telling you, Genzo, I saw a ship out in the middle of the ocean. It was heading this way. What kind of a suicidal moron tries to sail a ship in this kind of storm? They'd be capsized before they made it halfway to shore. The identified Genzo, however, wasn't as pessimistic as he looked carefully amongst the roaring waves, until his eyes promptly landed on something amidst the chaos. I'll be damned. There really is a ship out there. He was quick to point the ship out, with the villagers shining their lights as far out as possible, watching the ship battle against the waves despite its small size. I can't believe that little boat has sunk by now. Whoever is on that boat must be crazy or just a damn good sailor. As the boat reached closer, Genzo could see there were at least 2 people inside the boat, though the rain and wind made it impossible to see them properly. Eventually the boat managed to make it to the dock and the passengers managed to climb out. One was a strange blonde-haired man clad in black and orange he'd never seen before, while the other was a bit more familiar. Belmir, what the hell possessed you to try and sail in this storm? Look at you, you're bleeding all over the damn. His words quickly died when Belmir's coat promptly opened up, revealing to his shock 2 young girls wrapped in soaking wet blankets, both faces red with fever along with haggard breathing. Belmir looking upon the group with a desperate look in her eyes. Doctor, someone get me a doctor right now. These girls are really sick, they'll die if they don't get help right now. Ironically, if you can believe it, the village's doctor happened to be present, and he was just as shocked as everyone else. I'm here, Belmir. We'll take care of them. But we need to take care of you too. The red-haired Marine violently shook her head, so much so it was a miracle her neck didn't break. Forget about me, just help them please. She yelled at the top of her lungs as the girls were taken away. She would have continued, only to feel herself get pulled up to her feet as well. What did I say about being stupid? You go through all the trouble to save these girls. You should at least give some consideration to your own health. Belmir looked up at Naruto, who was more or less picking her up with one arm in a surprising display of strength, with a hard look on his face. She quickly grew angry at his comment, but her words died when she noticed how his own face had become rather strained, as if in pain. You want to be there for those girls. Kind of hard to do if you die because you were too stubborn to get medical help, so do them a favor. And his words grew weaker with each sentence until finally his legs gave out and he hit the floor of the deck with a splash, prompting Belmir, who managed to pull herself from his grasp, to panic again. Hey, what's the matter? Get up, you idiot! As she felt around, any comment she had quickly died in her throat as she felt a wet sensation cover her palm, which differed from the rain as it was thicker than the water, and with a single glance she quickly figured it out. Blood, but how? Quickly flipping him over, she looked to see a rather large spot on the left side of his abdomen, now stained in blood, and it didn't take much for her to figure it out. Back on the island, the gunshot, you idiot, why didn't you say anything? To her surprise, Naruto just smiled, despite the blood leaking from his mouth. Heh, well, we had the 2 kids to worry about, didn't want you to get distracted, besides it's only a flesh wound. Only a flesh wound, my ass. You stupid jerk. You better not die on me. She raged, shaking him by the tattered lapels of his jacket. I swear I'll pry the gates of the underworld open and shove my boot up your ethereal ass if I have to. That doesn't make me feel any better. The village doctor, thankfully, hadn't left yet, and quickly made his way over to the injured man, while Belmir was still in the midst of threatening to kill the apparently dying blonde who kept on smiling. Hey, it's no big deal. We saved the kids and you made it back home. Sounds like a win to me. His eyes quickly began to droop as Belmir felt the compulsion to slap him awake, but by then the doctor had ordered the other villagers to pull her away while he did some first aid. The last sight he managed to catch was of the brash and foul-mouthed Marine crying in anger as she looked at the man who'd helped save her slowly bleed to death while she couldn't do anything to help him. Don't you die! Those were the last words he heard before blackness took him. Down to you dare die. In hindsight, he almost wished he had. Slowly Naruto managed to feel his eyes open, thanks in part to the warm feel of the sun on his skin. However, it was a little too bright as his eyes latched shut just as quickly due to the intense light. Okay, who turned on the bloody sun? Letting out a muttered growl, he shaded his vision enough to slowly make out where he was, sitting up with a slight amount of pain in his chest. A quick scan revealed him to currently be in a bed, in a decently furnished-looking room. Quickly looking down on his boy, he found bandages where the bullet wound was, letting out a light chuckle. Guess I'm still alive. Not sure whether to be happy or not about that, considering I know next to shit about what's going on. Heck, now I don't even know where I am. That'd be my office, my boy. With a quick turn of the head, Naruto's eyes found themselves focused on the familiar form of the doctor. Huh, remind me again, you're a doctor, right? Yep, best damn doctor in the whole village. Funny, Belmir told me you were the only doctor. The doctor quickly shut himself up, letting out a cough to try and change topics. Anyway, as to where you are, you're in Kokoyashi village, Belmir's hometown. You should consider yourself lucky, kid. You'd have bled out if we hadn't gotten to you when we did. Well, that only happened because I'd run out of chakra. The blonde felt the need to defend himself, wincing slightly at the pain evoked by the scar. The idea that some weakling could actually hurt him just by pointing a one of those things at him was worrying. That kinda crap usually doesn't happen to me. Chakra? See, stuff like that makes me think Sasuke didn't just blast me over to the next continent. Casually feeling around the wound he'd been given, Naruto could quickly tell it had since healed up completely. Well, thanks be to Kami for small blessings, he'd recovered enough chakra to not be in any immediate danger. But the knowledge that he'd run out at all was disconcerting. Worse still was the void he felt when he tried to reach for Kurama, as if the fox's chakra was still there, but the beast itself wasn't. Still, he was content to play dumb for the moment if only for the sake of those watching. And what about Belmir and the girls, they're alright? Oh, I wouldn't worry about them, my friend. Letting out a hearty laugh as he spoke, Belmir's far too stubborn to let something like a few injuries and a storm stop her, and the girls are fine as well. Actually, damnest thing, crazy woman decided to adopt the two girls right after she recovered enough, came as a shock to the whole village. Doctor got up and made his way to his desk to retrieve something, while Naruto seemed to let out another smile at the revelation. Well, that's good to know. After every horrible thing those girls had to go through, nice to know there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. Oh, I wouldn't get too happy if I were you, my young friend. Belmir was outright furious with you. Had to sedate her in order to keep her from trying to knock you senseless while you were still bleeding, and I'm pretty sure once she finds out you're awake, she'll make good on the threat. Naruto actually felt a little afraid at the remark, but only slightly, rubbing the back of his head a little in response. Don't suppose you could keep that a secret from her for a bit, least until I get out of here? Oh, I'm afraid it's a little late for that. Naruto felt his stomach plummet like a sinking stone at the sound of that voice. His head instinctively turned toward the doorway. Sure enough, there was Belmir standing there with an all-too-friendly-looking smile on her face, though any intimidating factor she was going for was significantly reduced by the little orange-haired baby she was carrying and the little blue-haired girl next to her. The doctor gave him a knowing look he failed to recognize and departed. I think I'll just leave the happy couple alone then. Who's a happy couple, who's a happy couple, or? They both decried at his rapidly departing back. At that a silence fell over their strange little group. Finally, the blue-haired lass broke it by approaching the bed and tugging at his arm. Nay, Aji-san. Naruto's sweat dropped. Aji-san? Are you okay? Bah! As if something like that could kill me. Good, guess that means you'll live. Belmir grinned, and in that grin, he felt his hopes plummet even further. Now you can help me take care of these little rugrats. There was a silence, and then, what? A/N. And there we be. Another marvelous production by Agura and Neon, champions of happy endings for all, so in the immortal words of Atlas. Review, would you kindly? And of course, enjoy the preview. Hope it warms your heart. Preview. Oh, Nami! The young girl froze dead in her tracks, the book of maps clutched against her chest. With every fiber of her being she willed herself not to turn around, knowing full well who stood over her. In the end, however, her tiny body betrayed her, and she found herself staring up into a pair of bemused blue eyes. Her father chuckled softly, a large hand reaching down to muss her strawberry blonde locks. Why'd you take that, eh? He drawled gently. I could have just bought it for you. But you need to put those oranges back, you know? I know times are tough, and we can't always afford what you want, but stealing is not the way to about it. Okay dash. Nami couldn't help herself. She really couldn't. She bolted. You'll never take me alive, Pops. Oh? Naruto sputtered. I'm sorry, what did you just say? If anything, the grin on Belmir's face seemed to grow even wider. There was nothing dangerous in that smile to suggest he might be in any danger yet. Her felt himself bristle all the same. Somehow the sight of it rooted him where he stood, as if he'd come face to face with a terrifying predator, and he was the prey. Just what was it with him and redheads? Was he cursed or something? Though his every instinct shrieked at him to bolt, someone managed to stand fast and meet her gaze still. You heard me. While I could raise these little ones alone, it seems, little Blue. No, Jiko, said Bluenet, happily corrected. Right, Right, Belmir continued, musing her hair. Little Nojiko seems to have gotten attached, after getting over their fevers and becoming a little more coherent. I let Nojiko know that I intended to adopt her and the little one here, Nojiko said, lifting the babe in her arms. It seems since we discovered the girls at approximately the same time, she assumed that we're a package deal. She was excitedly dancing and shouting something about the strongest mommy and daddy. I didn't have the heart to say otherwise. Isn't that right, little one? Not receiving an answer, she looked down to her side to see that Nojiko had moved. Much to her bemusement, in the time that she'd taken her eyes off her, the little brunette had gone to the other side of the bed during Belmir's retelling of the events. She was currently sitting on the edge, shaking Naruto's arm. Ned, you're going to be our new papa, right, Aji-san? Please, please, please? An awkward silence pervaded the room. Nojiko made a small, pained sound, like a cub pining for its parents. Please, ga, the eyes. How could you focus on those eyes and not melt into a pile of rubbery goo? With that, the last brick in the wall of his resistance crumbled away. I mean, well, Naruto wasn't quite sure how to respond, although they had been more focused on getting safely to land. During the crazy journey to Kokoyashi village, he had managed to get some information on the crazy world he suddenly found himself in. In an overgeneralization, it appeared that he was now in an ocean-based world locked in a perpetual conflict between the main power, something along the lines of global government, and the thousands of pirate crews that roamed the seas. He hadn't really thought too far ahead but was considering scouting out this world a bit. Is that so? A sudden sinister pressure brought him back to the present moment. Tracking it back to its source, he found Belmir pinning him with the most evil mixture of grin and glare that had probably ever came into existence in the multiverse. This time, the message was quite clear. It promised untold pain on his end if he dared answer in any other fashion than Nojiko was hoping. Sweat dropping, he turned back to the little lass he still had to answer. Would it really be that bad? There was nothing of his old world/life waiting for him anyways. He'd also be lying if he said that he hated the idea of being a dad. Of course, little lady, he said, tussling her hair, I'd be honored to be your daddy, GH. Before he could squeeze out that last word, he found himself glommed. 30 minutes later, having been given a clean bill of health, Naruto soon found himself with his new charges soon found themselves in Belmir's cottage. It doesn't look like much from the outside, but the architect managed to squeeze in 3 rooms when building this. I was planning on using them for storage, but I guess they come in quite usefully now. The room on the right is mine and currently the only one with a bed. The girls can bunk with me until that's remedied. But I guess you can have the leftmost room and we'll let the girls have the one in the middle. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but I noticed that it's a little Spartan in here, he said, noticing that the house lacked many amenities. Seemed to be the right word. It was rather simply furnished, but there still seemed to be a comforting atmosphere in the little shack. Looking around, she realized it was a little sparse. Scratching the back of her head, she said, all the assignments I've been sent on with the Marines meant I never really had time to set any roots here. I kept it simple. Oh yeah, you did say you were in the Marines. How are you planning on balancing work with the kids? I'm not. Well, not Marine work at least. They allow their female members to take maternity leave with included pension. I wasn't a senior member, so it won't be much, but it ought to help. Naruto took a quick glance at the baby girl currently in Belmir's grasp. And how long is that maternity leave supposed to go for? The Marines aren't gonna come kicking the doors and if you don't come back, are they? Belmir only let off a laugh at the remark, carrying the baby over to the nearby bed and laying her down gently on the comforter. Thankfully, we live in the East Blue where not a whole lot of pirates like to hang around. Most of them are low-level garbage that an average Marine can take down. Plus the Marines are a massive military force. I think they can survive being short one woman. With the baby softly snoring on the bed, Belmir quickly reached into her jacket pocket and pulled cigarette packet. My career, of course, is the least of our problems. Gonna need to figure out a way to support this little ragtag family of ours. She proceeded to pull out one of the smoke sticks and placed it in her mouth. Before reaching for her lighter, she failed to notice her partner's expression. I actually started growing tangerines on my property a while back. Might be able to sell them for a decent chunk of change. We won't get rich, but it might help. Her train of thought quickly died as she felt both her lighter and cigarette disappear from her grasp. The denial of her sweet nicotine made the former Marine's head dart back and forth in every direction. Here's another thing that'll help out. Belmir looked at Naruto, quickly spying the cigarette and lighter in his hands. As of this moment, we're nicotine-free. Thought I told you not to be reckless, and here you are about to light one off with a baby in the house. Belmir's rage practically erupted as she jumped to her feet. Quit acting like I was gonna start blow smoke down the kid's throat. I was just gonna light it in here and smoke it out the window. Now give me back my lighter. Is that so? Rather than acquiesce to her request, the whiskered warrior turned his head, flicking furtive gaze out the window. He hefted his arm, muscles tensing. The Marine yelped and lunged at him. Realizing what he intended, her hand brushed the carton just as the blonde jerked it out of her grasp. As a result, she was just a hair too slow to prevent what transpired. With a determined grunt, Naruto cocked his arm and flung her precious into the wild blue yonder, over her dismayed cries. No! She wailed, gazing out at the distant speck. Why'd you do that, Whiskers? I agreed to help take care of these kids, and one way to do so is to remove possible health hazards, like cigarettes, regardless of whether you're smoking outdoors or indoors. Besides, you're just as responsible for these kids as I am, and I'm not about to let you kill yourself with this crap. With a single stamp, he crushed the cigarette he'd swiped from Belmir. For a moment he almost felt a flicker of pity for her. She looked as though her heart had suffered a stomping as well. Who looked as though her heart had just been, while Nojiko seemed to be holding back several laughs. Now that we've set up that little ground rule, I think I'll head into the town and see if there's any work I can scrounge up. Should be a few odd jobs around that I can make us some money to spruce up this place a little. Besides, might as well introduce myself to the rest of the town. He quickly made his way for the door, casually ruffling Nojiko's hair as he did. Oh, and I'll also be making sure to tell the local markets and stores not to sell you any more smokes or lighters. Gotta keep mommy healthy for the kids, Ja-ni. Why, you little, gotta gullivayabi. Naruto quickly started kicking up dirt under his feet as he saw smoke coming out of Belmir's ears. He only ran for a couple of yards before taking in the sights around him. Having an actual chance to look around, the island was surprisingly peaceful looking, mostly open fields with small patches of forest here and there, some of which were clearly meant to be Belmir's Tangerine Grove, which at the moment only consisted of about 2 rows of 10 trees. Guess making money to expand the orchard is another thing on my to-do list while I'm staying here. Then again, growing trees and watching kids pretty much beats the hell out of fighting in a global war, so I can't really complain. It didn't take long for the blonde to reach the town, which was simple like the rest of the island. A couple of rows of builds and houses, nothing fancy but still plenty homey looking. Naruto actually found himself smiling somewhat as he felt the warm sun shine down on his face, while looking at the townsfolk go about their daily lives without much care. A couple of the villagers actually caught sight of the tall, orange-clad blonde and offered him a casual wave, to which he reciprocated. Well, if it isn't the half-dead man Belmir managed to drag into her latest crazy stunt. Gave us quite a scare, young man. Naruto quickly found himself staring at the smiling face of Genzo, clad in his policeman's uniform, though for some reason his hat now had a pinwheel of all things on it, though Naruto chose not to question it at the moment. Sorry, I don't believe we were formally introduced. What with all the excitement, I'm Genzo, the local police and authority around here, though I usually have only had to deal with Belmir's antics in the past, so it's not much of a title. He offered Naruto his hand and he accepted it, shaking in response. I'm Naruto, and I guess I'm your island's newest resident and Belmir's roommate, more or less. His last words drew a great guffaw of a laugh from Genzo along with several people in the immediate area. Poor kid, doesn't know what he's in for. I'm surprised Belmir hasn't already tried kicking his ass. Good luck getting sleep with her around, pal. Naruto's face flattened at the town's comments. I take it Belmir's not the most behaved person in the world. Genzo only laughed again. My boy, you don't know the half of it. That girl's been a miniature typhoon of mischief for this town since day one. Drives the lot of us crazy, me especially. Oh, a dark cloud seemed to quickly gather over Naruto's head as he quietly sunk down to the ground. Wonderful. I wind up in some crazy new world and now I have to take care of a couple of kids with woman that acts like a combination of Anko and me back when I was a kid. Cruel irony. Genzo looked at the slightly depressed teen and merely patted him on the shoulder. Hey, loosen kid. Belmir's actually mellowed out quite a bit since her early days. Heck, surprised the whole damn island when she decided to join the Marines. However, Genzo's tune quickly changed as he began contemplating something. Then again, when she was a kid she didn't have the military training and access to firearms she does now. Thank God she has her cigarettes to mellow her out. Naruto's cloud grew bigger as sweat actually started seeping down his brow as the image of a pissed-off Belmere with a rifle in one hand and a sword in the other entered his mind. Anyway, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Belmere taking those kids on shows, she's matured a lot since she was a kid and I'm confident she'll be able to handle things. He quickly gained a big smile on his face as he looked at Naruto. Of course, with you helping her out, I have no doubt things will work out in the end. Yeah, this part might need some editing. Naruto could only smile back at the officer as he stood up. I suppose so, though right now we're gonna need some money to help keep things together. Any chance there are some jobs around town I might be able to help with? Genzo's eyes quickly scanned over the blonde. Well, our island isn't big, so we don't have any major businesses or anything like that. Best I can think of is maybe helping out some of the local fishermen, and some of the locals with some heavy lifting if possible. Naruto felt tempted to frown again, partially because the tasks reminded him of D-rank missions, but also because it wasn't likely he'd be able to make much money with jobs like those. Though before that happens, I think you might want to consider some new clothing, my friend. I'm not an expert, but that suit you're wearing looks like it's about to fall apart. Naruto didn't even have to look at his jumpsuit to know Genzo was right. Between the rain, the blood and various rips, his tracksuit was on its last threads and it couldn't be at a worse time. And there's another expense I really don't need at this point. Genzo, however, once again offered a comforting hand. Come with me for a second. I think we'll be able to find you something cheap. Naruto was tempted to refuse, but at the moment he didn't have many options, especially since he now had to consider Belmere and the girls. The blonde was brought to the local clothing store and quickly swiped out his old clothes for a pair of simple white pants, black sandals, an orange vest and a black sash which helped serve as a belt. Of course, he also kept his headband on, the only memento from his previous life. There, least now you can walk around without looking like you just crawled out of a war zone, kid. Genzo smiled again, along with the store's owner. Naruto, however, still felt uneasy and opened his mouth to speak, but Genzo quieted him. There's nothing to worry about, kid. This one's on us. Think of it as a thank you. Belmere told us how you saved her and the girls from one of the pirates, and nearly died because of it. Giving you a few free clothes is the least we can do. Genzo quietly walked forward and patted Naruto on the shoulder. Our island is small and we see ourselves as one large extended family. We look out for each other and care for each other. We owe you a debt of gratitude for bringing Belmere back to us, so don't worry about it, okay? Genzo, however, once again offered a comforting hand. Come with me for a second. I think we'll be able to find you something cheap. Naruto was tempted to refuse, but at the moment he didn't have many options, especially since he now had to consider Belmere and the girls. The blonde was brought to the local clothing store and quickly swapped out his old clothes for a pair of simple white pants, black sandals, an orange vest and a black sash which helped serve as a belt. Of course, he also kept his headband on, the only memento from his previous life. There, least now you can walk around without looking like you just crawled out of a war zone, kid. Genzo smiled again, along with the store's owner. Naruto, however, still felt uneasy and opened his mouth to speak, but Genzo quieted him. There's nothing to worry about, kid. This one's on us. Think of it as a thank you. Belmere told us how you saved her and the girls from one of the pirates, and nearly died because of it. Giving you a few free clothes is the least we can do. Genzo quietly walked forward and patted Naruto on the shoulder. Our island is small and we see ourselves as one large extended family. We look out for each other and care for each other. We owe you a debt of gratitude for bringing Belmere back to us, so don't worry about it, okay? The blonde ninja could only smile along with Genzo, seeing the image of Sarutobi and Jiraiya standing beside the aging officer. Thanks, Genzo. I'm starting to really get the feeling I like it around this island. The two quietly made their way out of the store and walked down the street somewhat, getting a few more greetings from the people in the village. By the way, kid, I've been meaning to ask. You've healed up a lot faster than anyone I've seen. Most people would be laid out for a couple of weeks after getting shot like you did. You eat a devil fruit or something? Devil what now? Naruto's blank look was all it took for Genzo to realize he didn't know what he was talking about. Basically, they're fruits that supposedly give you powers when you eat them, but take away your ability to swim. Can do anything from manipulating the elements to turning into animals, even a few weirder ones out there. It's pretty much how we explain anything weird we see. Well, I can tell you I didn't eat any weird fruit. I just heal really fast, nothing special. Genzo nodded as the two walked back to the front of what appeared to be his office. Well, kid, this is my stop. I imagine Belmere will be wanting you back pretty soon. Don't worry too much about the job situation. Like I said, we're family in this town, so don't expect us to just let you starve to death. Though Belmir can be pretty stubborn with handouts every now and again. Hopefully you'll be able to knock some sense into her. Naruto nodded. Based on my current standing with her, I'm pretty sure she'll be the one doing the knocking. But I'll keep that in mind. Thanks again, Genzo. With a wave, the blonde proceeded to make his way back to Belmir's home, a world covered by oceans, with fruits that give you superpowers. And I thought chakra was weird. Well, still some helpful insight. Still problem with making some money around here. Could always try shadow clones, but that might cause more trouble than it's worth. Besides, since he'd awoken, Naruto had been trying to keep inventory of his chakra to an extent. Originally he figured that since he still had his healing abilities, that other than being a little jet-lagged from his dimension hopping, he was otherwise perfectly fine. Truth, however, was his healing was about all he had left. Whatever teleportation crap ripped him from his home had messed with his chakra and control. As it stood, he could maybe make 2 or 3 clones at most, forget the Rasengan. Of course, Naruto still had his combat training and he was still strong enough to where he was confident he could kick the arse of anyone dumb enough to show up. If I remember correctly, Belmir said the East Blue is actually the one with the weakest pirates and lowest crime rate. Hopefully that means I won't need to get into any heavy combat. As the cabin came in sight, Naruto shifted restlessly, contemplating his exact situation. On the one hand, I promised Belmir and Nojiko more Nojiko, cause I'm sure Belmir would have been kicking my ass if I said no, to stay here and help out. At the same time, I have no idea how I got here or how to get back home. And apparently this world doesn't have ninjas, so damn it. Why does this crap always happen to me? A muscle jumped in his jaw. In a fit of pique he quickly punched forward at the nearest tree. Much to his chagrin, the weathered bark offered little in the way of resistance. He'd scarcely struck the tree than it shattered like so much glass. With a harsh crunch its ruined remnants spun away from him to collide violent with a score more of its brethren, sending them pinwheeling out of sight. Feeling the anger slowly leave him, he loosed a reluctant, calming breath. All right, he heaved a sigh that made me feel a little better. Wrapping his fist, he turned to face another tree. Now, as long as I don't wreck the forest. A low crunch staunchly said otherwise. Naruto felt his shoulders droop. Ah shit, A/N. And there we be. Another marvelous production by Agura and Neon, champions of happy endings for all, so in the immortal words of Atlas. Review, would you kindly? And of course, enjoy the preview. Hope it warms your heart. Previews. Oh, Nami! The young girl froze dead in her tracks, the book of maps clutched against her chest. With every fiber of her being she willed herself not to turn around, knowing full well who stood over her. In the end, however, her tiny body betrayed her, and she found herself staring up into a pair of bemused blue eyes. Her father chuckled softly, a large hand reaching down to muss her strawberry blonde locks. Why'd you take that, eh? He drawled gently. I could have just bought it for you. But you need to put those oranges back, you know? I know times are tough, and we can't always afford what you want, but stealing is not the way to about it. Okay dash. Nami couldn't help herself, she really couldn't, she bolted. You'll never take me alive, Pops. Oh? Naruto glowered bloody blue daggers at his daughter. Lifting his head slowly, he craned his neck loosely and somewhat erratically as he stood looking at the direction of the voice, a twitching, spasmodic movement to his motions. Time for punishment. His fingers wriggled madly. No! No tickling! Anything but that. Belmir coughed wetly, grinning as she massaged the thin graze of the bullet across her stomach. A near miss. You pressed the Naruto button. Arlong scowled, lowering the pistol. How the hell had he missed? His shot had been dead on. The wa. Nojiko grinned as a dark shadow resolved itself behind the hulking pirate. You shouldn't have did that. Crunch. That was the only warning he received before a hand closed around the messy mane of his hair and yanked from behind. Whomever they were, they yanked with such force that Arlong actually found himself scalped, his spiky black locks torn away with a spatter of red blood and blue flesh. Ground, his nose bent at a horrid angle as someone or something slammed his face into the dirt.